Exeter, the historic heart of Devon and home to Exeter City Football Club, the largest fan-owned club in England. In a journey of pain and triumph, Exeter City fans have been through it all since the turn of the century. A unique club in modern football, one that can truly say the supporters are the lifeblood of the club.
My eldest daughter is Eleanor Charlotte Florence Crockford, so ECFC, and I still slightly resent the fact she's not Exeter City Football Crockford, but that wasn't allowed, so yeah.
Yeah, I was born in Exeter, I live in Exeter, so yeah, it had to be Exeter if anyone.
I think it's the usual thing, you come along with your parents and then the atmosphere just hooks you in.
Only applied to universities that had Football League clubs. Got into Exeter. Well, I couldn't find the ground to start with because there weren't any big floodlight pylons. I was thinking, where is this ground? So you've got to go down the street. So I was a little bit late. And literally, I walked onto the big bank and Fred Binney, our striker, bore down on goal and scored literally within a minute of me arriving. I thought, oh, this is all right.
6 or 7 would have been my first game in the stand that's no longer here, the old grandstand. The first thing that happened was a big inflatable ball came down and I had to sort of like usher out the way of it.
I was at Exeter Uni at the time and started to do a lot of volunteering, and that was where I really started going.
And then when I got involved with City a bit more, I really understood the club and saw how much of a respectful club it is towards its fans, towards its players, towards the management. You know, like, it's just a real nice family of a club.
A lot of people get into football, it's a family thing to start with, turns into a mates thing, and then you get married and you move away and you do stuff, but you never leave the club behind really. It always kind of travels with you. And so yeah, since 1969 I've been following the club.
In the late 1990s, Exeter City were one of England's crisis clubs, forced to sell their ground and plunged into administration. By 2003, the club were facing extinction. 4 million in debt, relegated from the Football League, there were no buyers waiting, so it was up to the supporters to step up and save their club.
The Devon people just go and then go again. The amount of adversity at the beginning was just, nobody really knew how we were going to get out of it. Everybody just sort of just nose to the grindstone from all the age groups, all the Grecian groups.
In essence, we were massively in debt. The owner of the club, he just had his fingers really burnt with the fraudsters that took the club over at the time.
I was very close to getting involved a year earlier, but thought the due diligence said that the numbers were sort of 2.4 million and it was beyond.
And I think supporters were almost a safe, known bet.
It wasn't a case of, no, this is too big, this is too much. Somehow it had to happen.
And couldn't be any worse than anyone else. In fact, did an absolutely brilliant job because it just liberated this feel for the club.
Literally walking into town, walk past the ground and suddenly you're a bit dewy-eyed because you think, I might never come here again. So the work that people done during that period of time deserves far more recognition than it gets, I think.
You've only got to look at the ground and the training ground to see quite a phenomenal difference to the dilapidated mess that was, hugely 4.8 million in debt at the day that the fans took over.
To be able to achieve that in a relatively short period of time, actually, to suddenly, one day you're going out of business, the next day the supporters are running it. It's almost kneeling comedy of the past.
When the Supporters Trust took the reins of the club, it was in a deep financial hole. Despite all of this, they kept the academy running and maintained a competitive team on the pitch. This paid dividends as performance on the pitch provided the financial lifeline of a lifetime. In January 2005, Exeter City were drawn away to Manchester United in the FA Cup.
The story that my dad tells of him watching the draw, like holding me in his house in Spain, and we drew Man United, and And he went, right, we've got to go. And he took my brother to Old Trafford, and he tells me this amazing story about how he kept on looking at the clock over in the corner. He thought, God, every time he looked over, he thought we might actually be able to get something out of this.
And non-league Exeter City got a 0-0 draw. And not only did we get the proceeds from all the tickets, you know, way over 60,000 there watching that, but we got a replay back here at St James's Park.
I actually held the cheque in my hand. It was 625,000. That was like 625 million in those days. So
the replay wasn't so important to Exeter City as the actual original match at Old Trafford.
of course I've missed a lot of it because I'm sat with it in the director's box. It was lovely to sit with Bobby Charlton, but actually the real place to be was up in the stand with everybody going bananas. You know, that was the place to be.
There have been so many replays over the years which have brought the club a great deal of income that it's a shame that they've gone.
Suddenly there was a feel-good factor again around the club, and it solved a lot of our financial problems, not all of them, but a lot of them. But I think it really gave everyone at the club a boost just when they needed it.
On its own, it didn't save the club, but it certainly paved the way. That was the first major step towards being where we are today. And the scrapping of the FA Cup replays is the decision was clearly made by people who didn't understand the significance of those games.
And we got to Wembley 2007, didn't make it over the line, playoff final, and then did it the next year and got back in the Football League. And by then, you know, we had 20, 30,000 people going to Wembley to support the club.
With the financial situation improving and promotion back to the EFL secured, supporters were still keen to help their club grow. The 1931 Fund is a unique arm of the football club that sees supporters raise funds to pay for an extra player in the squad. This player wears the number 31 jersey and is a real embodiment of supporters on the pitch.
The 1931 club was again one of the early inventions by supporters to help the club out. The intention was to be able to enable the club to sign an extra player, a player that they might not normally have signed.
Name as well, 1931. I mentioned earlier the playing in the quarterfinals in 1980-81. Well, the only other time we played was in 1931, but we had our biggest ever crowd at St James's Park for that replay in 1931, over 20,000.
We've had some nice moments when I think both our games against Liverpool, I think the 31 came off the bench, I'm sure that's right. The commentators always, they make those extensive notes, and clearly you're not going to miss that note, are you? So every time it's been, this is Exeter's no ordinary football club, there's no oligarch here, and here's the proof, the fans pay this guy's wages.
I think one of the brilliant things that's developed in the last few years is that's now supporting a female player as well as a male player. Both the men and women's teams have got 1931.
The club has gone from strength to strength since the early years of fan ownership, slowly climbing through the EFL, currently plying their trade in League One. In an isolated area, it would usually be tough to grow homegrown talents. But the Exeter City Academy is one of the most renowned in England. Matt Grimes, Ethan Ampadu, Jay Stansfield and England hero Ollie Watkins are just a few of their alumni.
Everybody talks about Ollie Watkins, there's a big picture of him behind you. And people forget that a lot of coaches went into developing him and a lot of time and effort went, and they don't get the glory. I know because he said so. He's really proud of being at Exeter City and really grateful to the attention that we gave him.
When we were under the CVA, we were a club in debt, and for him to keep the academy running was probably against the grain because we didn't have the money for it, and he went out and got friends and businesses to support the academies.
We want our football club, and then we want it sustainably run.
We, I think, have built ourselves a reputation of getting young players from other clubs to come here and for us to develop them, which is, again, is a real feather in your cap.
it's also a whole club approach. It's not just about the academy producing those players. It's then having a management team and a setup that recognises that talent, nurtures it, and brings it to the next level. Because it isn't just one aspect of the club. Whether it's the board, the manager, everybody buys into it, and that's because it's formed part of the identity of the club.
We've been very clever as a club at working on a lot of fronts. We've invested in our infrastructure, we've invested in our women's team, but we've also obviously invested in the men's team as well.
Forward thinking, Exeter City are champions of the Her Game 2 movement, with a flourishing women's team. Following a promotion last year, the Exeter City women's side moved into the management of the club, an important step in the future of the club.
It's credit to the community trust forefront. You know, they set up the women's club. They really created what environment they wanted to create and take us to a certain point, and it's credit to them to what point they took us to, because then the club have gone, right, okay, we're ready for that next step, that next professionalism. That wouldn't have happened without the community trust.
But we've now got several decades now of women's football at the club, and fantastic. At the end of last season, they won the fourth division, as it were, and are now playing at the same level of the men in the third tier of English football. And the crowds are going up. It means a hell of a lot to a lot of young girls in the area to have their own role models.
Contribute again to that community thing about taking local girls, developing them, bringing them into the first team. I think that's massive. But they should be really, really proud of how they've got the women's team to where it is already.
I think it's just a really positive statement from the club to say that we are one club. We're all together. Both our men's and women's team are part of Exeter City, and while it's the first season that this has happened, I'm really looking forward to seeing what the future holds for the women's team under the club. That's the important side of the game, of embedding those beliefs for kids, you know, to then want to come back and build it, and that creates a bigger thing later down the line. And I think Exeter are unique in that, because that's a focus point. We create a nice fan base and then we can build from that. The football part is easy. It is about playing, obviously, but it's not the pinnacle point. The pinnacle point is, what do you look like as for someone from the outside? Like, what do you represent? What's that looking like? How's that 5-year-old coming to watch you? What are they going to come away with? Are they going to come away with going, I want to play football? Perfect. Are they going to want to come back? Does the family want to come back?
In what seemed like the depths of despair at the start of the century, Exeter City fans have turned their club around. It's a feeling of pride that remains every time they walk through the gates of St James's Park.
To win on a Saturday, obviously. You want to get promoted, obviously, but that doesn't mean, that isn't the be-all and end-all of whether you're being run correctly or not.
You're playing for the city of Exeter. You're playing for everybody that's in the ground watching. And what I always say to them is, you know, if you're asked to sign an autograph or do a selfie, or they're your owners. So you kind of need to do it.
If you'd have said to me then that 20 years later we'd still be fan owned, we'd be in League One and we'd have 2 brand new stands, largely that we didn't pay for, it's remarkable.
I think it's just a family, and that's so cliche to say, of like, oh yeah, it's a football family, but you walk into the club and people see you and it's the same faces, and you say hey, and you get to know people, you get to know about their families off the pitch, you get to know about their jobs, and then you come out here and it just feels like everything that everyone's working towards, you then put it back on the pitch.
Speak to friends that aren't necessarily into football and they kind of say, oh, who do you support? And I'm like, Exeter City, and not only do I support them, but I am part of the club.
As well as the atmosphere being really, really good, it's also very kind to players.
Me, my brother and about 10 mates really, our big thing was getting the noise going, and for us I think getting the noise going would be the 10 of us singing, and occasionally some of the older fellas would join in. I mean, we might have a choir of 50, which to be fair in that old ground sounded all right actually, I think. Apart from that, it's really, really special, and you can tell, you know, the players absolutely love it.
Having that support, I really feel like it can make a difference on the pitch sometimes for the players. There's been some matches that have been really tricky and the big banks just come alive and kind of carried the team through to get that win.
We got very, very good away support as well. Terrific away support for the size of our club. I don't know why we're different, we just are.
Clubs often say that fans are at the heart of their club, but at Exeter City, they truly mean it. Exeter City fans have saved their football club, rebuilt it, and ultimately allowed it to thrive once more.
We were just blessed with having the right people in the right at the right time in the right place, you know, and they set something in motion that was so exciting and so special that people still today want to be involved in it.
It's a very young city. It's one of the youngest cities in the country. It's got a massive university, but also quite a young population. So I think that gives us both a lot of scope because it's growing, but also energy because it's young.
Recognise where we've come from, and we are now playing football at the highest level that we ever have done in a stadium that has never been this good. There are things that we need to improve on as a business and as a club, but we are better placed to leverage those improvements now than perhaps we ever have done.
It just makes it feel like, while it's the players that are out on a Saturday and Sunday actually playing football, it still feels like we're a part of it. So whether things are good, whether things are bad, I feel like we kind of just take it all on with us as well, and we're right there with the players on the pitch.
Having been in a position where you've pretty much got hold of and control of everything, it's time to pass on succession plan. I've always been looking at succession for others, now it's my turn.
A lot has been said about Hollywood stories in football today, but at Exeter City, they are the true fairy tale.
I think we are the original fairy tales rather than the likes of, dare I say it, Wrexham and all the big money clubs.
It's exciting to see where it takes us. There's so much more development happening behind the scenes. There's so much more input being placed on us, and it's exciting to see that change and be a part of it. I can't wait to come back here as a fan and be like, this is my club, like I got to represent them.
It's also about the future, and we've got to grab all the opportunities that come with that.
In terms of where we'll be, I don't know, but I just hope, I'll have everything crossed that we'll still be here, we'll still be a football club, we'll still be thriving at whatever level we are.
The great thing about football, I think, is great highs and great lows, and when it's good, it's unbelievable, and you float home. When it's bad, it takes you 3 hours, like walking through Trico, to trying to figure out what's going wrong. But the rewards, at Exeter City at any rate, the rewards are far greater than the bad bits.
A little saying from my teaching, it's not the survival of the fittest, it's the survival of the adaptable.